TGIF, it's Friday, November 8th, 2024. This DayWeather podcast brought to you by Converse County Tourism. Douglas and Glen Rock, Wyoming are bustling with action this upcoming holiday season. Plan your excursion, including fun activities, beautiful downtowns, and historic treasures. Learn more at conversecountytourism.com. Well, the winter storm is now going to make a move. It's been stalled out, bringing feet of snow to parts of New Mexico and southern Colorado. And quite a bit of snow over the last couple of days over the central and eastern plains of Colorado and rain across the high plains. Well, now it's going to start to move. As it moves, it's going to spread its influence to the north, northeast, and to the north-northwest, as you'll see here in a moment. It's got a lot of moisture to work with, as we showed you yesterday, and we'll show you again today. And we've got an upslope component, and we just have a very deep storm from the ground all the way up to the higher reaches of the atmosphere. There's a lot going for it. Model agreement is much better now on the edges of the storm. So confidence is higher now that the I-25 corridor from Denver up to Cheyenne into parts of southeastern Wyoming and western Nebraska will get a lot more precipitation than it looked like just 2 or 3 days ago. And a lot of that will be in the form of snow. We're going to have soupy conditions with fog and maybe freezing drizzle as well. But there's no cold air intrusion. A lot of times when you get a winter storm like this, you'll get cold air pulled in from the north. But since it's cut off from the jet stream, we don't have that. So literally the cold air gets created from the storm. It gets created from the atmosphere lifting. And also another reason is you get evaporative cooling from the heavy precipitation, which causes those temperatures to drop. But most of the cold air with this storm is within it. That's going to keep our snow levels relatively high. You get below 5,000 feet, you're mostly going to get rain. Travelers and livestock interests, be prepared for wet, snowy, rainy conditions. Fortunately, we don't see a lot of wind with the system, but we're going to see some, especially along Interstate 80 in Wyoming, something to watch out for. Once the storm starts to nudge its way closer to the jet stream, it'll get pulled in and will zip out pretty quickly. So it's barely moving here over the last couple of days, but as it goes more to the north, it gets closer to the main jet stream and will get lifted out of the area. Here's a great shot out of Scotts Bluff yesterday showing the edge, literally the edge of the influence of the clouds associated with the storm that when this picture was taken was over west central New Mexico. The cloud shield, a real razor's edge, and we've been showing you that razor's edge with the precipitation forecast. The clouds kind of showing that yesterday in the western high plains. Heavy snow in the Zuni Mountains of western New Mexico. Beautiful sunset yesterday over snow-covered New Mexico. I don't think I've seen this much snow this early in the season over such a large swath of New Mexico and parts of Colorado. Just really an amazing storm. This is something that you would maybe experience in an El Nino-driven spring storm, not so much a La Nina season fall storm. So interesting kind of scenario about what's going on right now. Now here's a pretty amazing photo, satellite image here. We have Hurricane Rafael out in the Gulf of Mexico. Luckily, it's headed westbound and is not headed towards the lower 48. It will likely dissipate before it gets into Mexico, but Mexico will have to deal with the remains of it. So here we have a hurricane. Here we have a major winter storm. Here we have a broad area of high pressure in the jet stream way up into Canada. So we got a hurricane and a winter storm in the same satellite photo. You don't get to see that very often, but it does happen, especially late in the hurricane season. The radar imagery this morning showing the rain-snow line is straddling the Kansas-Colorado border there. But notice there's a real big increase right here in the echoes as that moisture is drawn in and the storm now wants to lift to the north-northeast. This is as of very early this morning, the current watches, warnings, and advisories for weather. The green are flood watches. The red is a blizzard warning for northeast New Mexico. The pink are winter storm warnings, and the purple areas are winter weather advisories. Now, you might be wondering, why isn't there any advisories here? Well, I think this is trying to be too fancy. This is probably because these elevations are a little bit lower, and it may be more of a rain-snow mix, but I would paint those in purple. And also, I think as the day goes on, we may see the purple expanded further west into south central and east central areas of Wyoming in this area here. So even though you may not see purple in your area on the edges, that may change later today. So travelers, keep that in mind. By noon today, the low is going to be in northeast New Mexico, and the strong jet stream winds, if you notice, the black lines are packed in tighter here than on the back side, which means the jet stream winds, the winds aloft with the low, associated with the low, or want to pull it now to the north towards the jet stream. So the main jet stream winds. So it's going to make the turn to the north now. We're not thinking it's going to be heading to the east or this way. It's going to want to go that way. And so by 5 p.m., we have the upper level low centered right on the Texas-Oklahoma panhandle. And by Saturday morning, by 5 a.m. tomorrow, it's going to be just northwest of Goodland, near Yuma there. And you can see, we talked about the shape. This is up to 18,000 feet. So you can see all of the rings here. You have a spinning column of air going counterclockwise, and all of these winds aloft up to 8,000 feet are going to be pushed uphill. Upslope conditions will be found overnight. As the low goes northward, you're going to have those upslope winds go northward as well and deepening. Now let's check out the differences between the model. This is the European. The GFS is just a little bit more to the east, but enough to the east to make a difference again on the edges. The Canadian model is more like the European model. So if you can compare the three, they're all pretty darn close, but the Canadian and the European are a little further west, although the GFS model here has started to, let's say, correct back to the west, more in line with this and more in line with this. The AI version of the European model is a little bit more like the GFS model. So we'll kind of see what transpires, but they're all singing the same tune. And we showed you this over the last couple of days, the ability of this storm to tap into Gulf of Mexico moisture and bring it all the way back to this far to the west. Again, this is something that doesn't happen every fall. This is more of a spring-like situation. So that deeper moisture gets brought back and upslope gets very soupy. So here are the new numbers, so to speak. There's that sharp edge. And what we're looking at, the difference in the models now are much less. But if I were to draw a line here on the back edge, it could be this far to the east, it could be this far to the west, or it could be somewhere in between. So for you folks in Laramie, over to Rawlins, Saratoga, up to near Casper, Douglas, and Lusk, and up into the Black Hills, you're right on that razor's edge. If the low is a little more east, you're out of it. If it's a little more west, you're in it. But our confidence right here is very, very high in this area right here of the heavier precipitation. And we're going to see that as the low is definitely showing on satellite imagery. It's going to want to take a track. Again, take these numbers with a grain of salt, but this is the snowfall potential using a 10-to-1 ratio because we're going to be near freezing. So you're looking at an inch of rain would equal 10 inches of snow, somewhere in that area. So this is generally probably over forecast in the amounts, but they're going to be very, very impressive nonetheless. And you can see if the European is right, it's going to get all the way into Interstate 80 to the Sweetwater County, Carbon County line. And then we will see snow in parts of the Nebraska Panhandle. But if you look at where the pink is, it's either underneath the storm where it's colder, or it's in that 5,000 or 6,000 foot level or above along Interstate 80. When we take a look at the GFS model, it's very close to the European. It's just that the edge is more to the east and not too far to the west. Keep in mind, just a day ago, this area right here didn't show any precipitation. This is what the GFS looks like in terms of the moisture in regards to snowfall. Pretty similar. So things are lining up. The next cold front, this will be Tuesday of next week. This will bring mountain snow to the Pacific Northwest, the northern and central Rockies. We think it'll just be a front, not cutting off, not taking a trip down to New Mexico like this current one, but it will move through, bringing a little bit of winter weather, wind, colder temperatures, and high country snow as it comes on through. And this one's going to come in behind it by probably next weekend. So our busy November continues. Have yourself a great weekend. We'll see you, and we'll have more on Monday.